Go like that, and then you'll see me appear. Look, there you are, up on the satellite. Okay, right. I need to move aside because they'll need to.
Just making sure I work before I go on. There we go.
Good evening all from G8GKQ. Let's put a picture up, get a bit more power up. Nobody else on the transponder. Brilliant. Let's mute that. Okay, well, first of all, thanks to Martin for holding the fort for the last couple of weeks. It's good to be back. I walked into a shack full of chaos just now. Half an hour ago I had no audio at all. Now hopefully I've sorted all the odd audio buzzes and we're back to an even keel with the audio. 3.5mm jack sockets is the main problem. Okay, well, we'll just so Colin knows, he's on first. G4KLB will be on first. Notices we had a BATC committee meeting last night. There'll be more news from that in due course. Don't forget the activity weekend, which is not this weekend but the weekend after, 12th, 13th of February. 2 meters and down and 23 SEMS activity weekend. So please take a look at that. Try and get out despite the weather. I'll save all my other comments for next over. The order will be G4KLB, G4FKK, G7NTG, G4SAQ, all the G4s on here tonight, G0DQH, sorry I'm just writing these down off the screen, G4XAT, possibly GW4KAZ, perhaps you can confirm if you're coming on, Brian, and GU6EFB. That's what I've got so far. Oh, and G3IUZ, sorry. And G0MJW. Okay, so first of all round to Colin, and then I'll put the list up. G4KLB to take it, and the net, G8GKQ.
Thanks a lot. Excellent. Okay, thanks a lot. That's it. That all seems to be functioning. Very good. Anyway, very good. I'll just do one over tonight, if I may, because I'll need to go off to work. Hence the attire, although you can never usually tell. I'm always going at one time or another. But I'll just do the one over today. So thanks for letting me on first. That was very good. I actually finished on SQ ahead of time. In fact, SQ doesn't switch off for another 3 minutes. So yeah, so a bit of a record really. Last time I was going to finish last week, I was 11 minutes late. got carried away with something or another, but there we are. What have we been up to in the shack? It's been chaotic here, one thing after another really. But not all radio related, well nothing radio related really, but things are beginning to settle down now. So XYL's car is done and we need to find her a new one, and we've been putting a shed up in the garden. I can't really show that. Actually, well, I have got, actually don't need to see a picture of a shed really, do you? But you can have a quick look, I suppose. But this shed here is under construction. I haven't put the felt on the roof yet, but there we are. That's the shed that she wanted. So I've been doing that in between other jobs. So that's that. We've managed to acquire one of these little devices because they were so cheap. I couldn't resist. So there's some question of how much power they give out, but this is a potential for a bit of QO100 portable, maybe. So I've got one of these little Polish things. I think that there might be something appearing in CQTV regarding that. And I know that Jim somehow gets these off and converts them to like a sort of like a 45-degree S, to convert them to SMA, because this is a weird, it is a weird type of connector. But thanks to the SQ viewers, I know what it is. And it is a PSMP, which is like a high power version of an SMP, but it's not the same size as an SMP. I've found that out. But it's a PSMP, and here is an example of one here. And if I just plug it in, then it's a very nice fit actually. It's firm, but not too firm. But yeah, so that fits in there a treat actually. It's quite yes, it's good. I like it. So if you've got one of these, PSMP is what you got to search for. DigiKey didn't have any. They only had them available from the manufacturer direct, which incurred additional postage, so I didn't do that. But I found these on Mouser. But Albert did spot that they were in stock, so you might still get one. So I got this one here. You can't see the numbers, too small, isn't it, really? But anyway, PSMP, and then but they fit really well actually, really well. I didn't want to take these off. You could take them off, but the centre pin would be the issue, and I think probably Jim has left that bit and just soldered straight down, which seems a sensible idea, really. Seems a sensible idea to me. But I just fancied I liked them so much. I thought I would try and get some plugs. But these plugs are about £8 each, and you can pay stupid money for them. Let me just put that. Oh, here we are. There's a number. There's a number. That's the one I managed to obtain from Mouser. So there you go. But there's plenty of others about, and that type there appears to be like a board to board, so that it's meant to be something, another board plugging into it or something like that. But anyway, there we are. That may or may not help people. Most people would just do what Jim did, I expect. The other thing I've done yesterday is the beginnings of the MacGuffin test rig, or an example layout. This one is actually using 6-way relays because we got these cheap. But my main one is 8-band. This one would be 6. But this employs various. It's a good example of how people can tailor it to their own uses. But more of that later. I think I've had my time now, so that'll probably do. Okay, that's all from me for this week. I say I will have to scoot off to work before we're finished, really. So I shall say 7 trees, and I shall watch as long as I can, and catch up with you. Won't be next week because I'll be actually at work. So in a fortnight's time on here anyway. Okay then, 7 trees then. I didn't check the list. Oh, it's our other controller. Did an excellent job actually. I thought he did very well actually. He did very well. But anyway, that's very good. So thanks for doing that for us. That's good. I say Dave probably could have done with longer off really. I'm sure they deserved longer off really. But we're glad to have him back anyway. Okay then. G4FKK to take it. G4KLB.
Well, that's a good start. Sorry, I was a bit when I came into the shack, Dave. I've literally just come into the shack, so I've had to fire everything up, and it looks like it's working. I've not got the Polycom working at the moment. Oh no, it's just fired itself up. So I might go over to that in a minute. Anyway, good evening all. And well, thank you, Colin, for your very kind words. Yeah, the first week, Dave was away, it was quite a struggle. I kept making mistakes and things. But last week, I'd got it slightly more under control. And everyone was very kind and patient, so that was good. But yeah, welcome back, Dave. Good to see you back. And yeah, Colin, look what arrived here during the week. So I'll have to have a play with one of those as well. Yeah, those connectors. Let me just see if the other camera's working yet. Yeah, those connectors, those PSMP. Probably won't focus on it, but my original thought was to do what I did with some other connectors on another board, which is to just solder SMA sockets directly to those. It ruins the existing sockets, but you're right, they're quite chunky, aren't they? So maybe I'll see if I can find some of the gadgets you found there, Colin. Just make sure that's still going. Oh. And yeah, your MacGuffin breadboard looks extremely impressive and very big. But I guess I don't know if you've made all those boards stackable or something. But it'd be good. It was going to be excellent watching it all going when you've got it going, Colin. You said you'd leave it till next time, but next time probably won't be till next Thursday. But if you're off to work, and I'm sorry to hear you're having to do that. The other thing that I got back today was because some of you know I've been fiddling about with clocks, and I've now gone on to pocket watches prior to doing real watches. But I remembered I don't know if any of you have ever seen one of these. Come on, focus. Let me get a piece of paper. It's probably a bit optimistic to get the Polycom to focus on that. That is a Bulliver Accutron Space View, and my father at one time worked for Bulliver when I was about 11, and he came back with this watch. And the Space View was invented because the Bulliver Accutron's got a tuning fork in it. It was sort of an early attempt at electronic watches before they thought of using quartz. And one of the salesmen had said, it'd be really nice if we could show potential customers what's inside. So they cut off the face and decided to call it a Space View. And of course, I thought this was marvellous when I saw it. So my dad let me, I wore that all the way through my school career. But the way it works, it's got a very tiny wheel in there called an index wheel. It really is small. It's probably quarter of an inch across, maybe a bit bigger. And it's got 300 teeth on it, which you can only see through a microscope. And the chap who I left this with, who's had it for the last 15 years, by the way, waiting to see if he could get a part for it, said that one or maybe more of the teeth on that tiny wheel was broken. So, and I yesterday spoke to a chap who used to work with my dad at Bulliver, and said, "Have you got one of these index wheels?" And he said, "Well, I have, but that's £100 each. That's a £300 job, Martin, to fix that one." Oh, so it'll probably sit on my bench until I feel confident enough to try it myself. Anyway, that's completely irrelevant. I'll keep you posted on how the amplifier goes. So without further, in fact, Jim, you can tell us how these go. I've been watching the group with some interest, Jim. So I haven't closely examined this one to see if anything's fallen off it, but I guess you'll have the latest up-to-date news on whether it's worth persisting with those. But as Colin said, they're reasonably priced. So round to you then, Jim. G7 NTG and BATC Net G4FKK standing by.
Right, well I left a pause because that's not the order that's on the first order that Dave put out was me next, but then he put the one up with all the on the talkback, and there's an extra one in there. There's Brian in there, so he's obviously not doubling, so it must be working all right. So I don't know, I'm not sure. Well, I shall stay on, and then if it is Brian, then you better come in after me, Brian. Right, these amplifiers, yes. Oh, incidentally, thanks for all your good wishes last week. I'm still a bit rough in the throat. It's still a bit gargly. I had my second negative test today, the first being yesterday, so I'm pretty much clear of it, but I've still got symptoms, but there you go. Right, these amplifiers, which are actually pretty good on the whole. This one only does 55 watts. It's a bit lower than the others, but there seems to be a spread of them. But with them, with some I managed to get some of these. So move it back out a bit, which is a short length of cable with two of these plugs on it, which was very useful. I got these from Bison Electronics because I had half a dozen boards off him, so he threw a few of these in as well, and he threw quite a lot more than enough actually, so I've got a couple of spares. If anybody wants one, just email me. But they're a good fit, as those plugs are. If you look at this is what I've done to take them out to the outside, and that's to fit an end connector. Solder an end connector. Cut the link that I was given in half and put end connector on each of them or whatever, and that works very nicely. When you do the modifications, set it up on your test bench without taking any of the capacitors off, and get it running first, and then power down each time and take the capacitors off one at a time. Start with the outer ones and just take them off one at a time, and if after taking the second one off you're up to around 70 watts, then my advice is to leave it at that, because to take the third capacitor off, it sometimes drops and you think, oh, a big job to put it back on. And removing these, if I want to take any of these off and replace them with SMA, I sit the whole pallet onto a hot plate at 225 degrees centigrade, and it only takes about 6 or 7 minutes, and they're hot enough. I can just lift them straight off and then very carefully move the board onto a heatsink to cool it down. And I do mean very carefully, because going back a couple of years, I did one of the previous types, I knocked it and moved half the components, so that was a bit of a shame, but there you go. Not a lot else to report. I won't come on a second time because the old throat gets a bit, but I have been I've been writing an article of all magazines, The Railway Modeller, on the construction of those. One's only half done, so there you go. So with that, it's round to we'll try Brian now. GW4KAZ from G7NTG with the group.
Okay, G7NTG in the group. This is G4SAQ. Right. Apologies if my audio is a bit out of sync. I'll explain that. Yes, okay. I'll put it over to Brian. I'll put it over to Brian when I finish. I'm sorry if my audio is a bit out of sync. I've had quite a few problems trying to resolve my audio. Following the encouragement of Rob last week, I went ahead and changed to Windows 11, and sure enough, everything seemed absolutely fine, except I found that I could not get access to the audio from my microphone. And what happened, I did have a little bit of program on the computer called Max Audio Pro. And what it did, when you plugged a device into the computer, a little dialog box came up on the screen asking which device you'd plugged in, and you could then click on the appropriate one, and it would then respond to it. Well, Max Audio Pro stopped appearing on my computer, and I did a bit of digging, and it appeared that it required an update to a Realtek driver. So I found the appropriate Realtek driver and installed that. The long and the short was I got it all back. But in the process, I've messed up the settings for my audio delay, and I didn't realise that until about 10 to 8, and it was too late then to start fiddling around with it. So I'll resolve that some other time. Anyway, welcome back, Dave. Good to see you, and yeah, Martin's done a great job in your absence. What did I want to say? Yeah, Colin, that shed looks really nice. I like the double angle on the roof. It's very stylish. I'll make sure my wife doesn't see one of those. Yeah, I'm interested in that amplifier. I shall have to have a look on the web and see the information you put on there, Jim. Find out a bit more about that. Jim, yes. Well, glad you're able to come on the net tonight, and that you're making a recovery. That's excellent news. I don't have an awful lot more to say, as I haven't done any radio this week, other than fiddling around with the computer. And as you do with these computers when you get a problem, I spent hours and hours fiddling around with it before I got to the bottom. But there we are. I've done created a restore point and done a backup onto the hard drive now, so hopefully I've got a good baseline to continue from if I make any more mistakes with it. Yes, I went to a funeral this afternoon, rather sad. Peter, G8PIQ, who I did my RAE class with. I think it would have been in about 1976, something like that. And we were members of the Horndean and District Radio Club. And Peter was a great guy, very, very helpful to everyone. And that was more than apparent from everything that was said at his funeral ceremony this afternoon. And so yeah, we're sad to see him go. There we are. That's all from me then. Now I'm going to put it round to we'll see if Brian can pick it up. GW4KAZ. So I'll just put up the test card and then I'll drop carrier. So over to you from G4SAQ.
Okay, let me try some audio. Apologies. Everything goes wrong when you want to get things working. Am I getting through? That's the thing. Yes, there's something there. Okay. Well, that's fine then. And okay, let me get this. See if I can get myself on the screen. Okay. Now then, have I got audio? That's the next thing, isn't it? Audio, okay. Well, thank you, Dave. Well, that's great then. Okay, very good evening to you all, and thanks for letting me in, Dave. And all interesting stuff so far. Colin doing a great job then, and Martin with his watch, and Jim, yeah, Andres, nice to see you both. And sorry, oh, I'm glad you're better, Jim. That's good. And quite interested in that amplifier. I thought of having something portable as well, so that's something I might take up. At the moment I'm just starting to build a Ryde receiver, and I think that will do me for now. I hope I'm getting through, gents. I certainly hope so. Thanks for letting me in once again, Dave. I won't hold it because I've got nothing much of news from here. But just great that I'm getting through the box. Well, I certainly hope so. Okay, I've got no way of monitoring at the moment for some. Anyway, things are not working out as they should. Okay, over to. I think it's DQH. That's next. I think so. Anyway, if I'm wrong, yeah, I'm wrong. DQH.
Just testing the audio. Just testing the audio. Yep, good. Good evening, everyone. From DQH. Nothing much going on this end. I've been busy sorting out this hacker radio, and thankfully that's completed. That can go back now to my ex-lady down in Braunton in Devon. And at this stage I'd like to say good evening to Roger and Lynn if they're watching in Salisbury. And we met up on Sunday last, when I picked up actually picked up another hacker radio from them. So that's I've got it in bits actually over behind me. So I've actually been very busy this week, apart from work. We've had a new fire put in the lounge. Originally we had a brick fireplace, which was a bit old-fashioned, and a gas fire. Well, the gas fire, if they send hydrogen or part hydrogen down through the system, it's not going to be much good. So we've had that block, took out the fireplace, blocked it off, and we put in a very, very modern electric fire. And I think people are going to say, wow, that's a bit expensive, but actually it's not, because what we were going to have put in there was one of these wood burners, with the chips, you know, the self-feed chips. And to be honest, I wasn't happy about it, because it was over 7,000 to have it fitted, and also it's very polluting as well, and that was our main concern. So we've gone electric, and this thing's amazing. It was quite expensive to buy, and it's looking pretty good. I've yet to fit it. I'm in the middle of painting and decorating and trying to get it all fixed up. So
that'll happen, I hope, before the weekend. So we're pretty much fixed up for energy. We've got solar PV and we've got solar hot water as well on this house. We've already had a tank full of hot water. That was the day before yesterday, which was quite nice, quite nice weather. But spring's arrived, they say, a month early this year, and looking at the display on the PV, I could agree with that, because I've gradually seen the output gradually rising as the days have progressed. And I think we generated 1.5 kilowatts day before yesterday, but we've only got a 1.1 kilowatt system on the garage roof, so it's not a big system by any means, but it was put there about 12 years ago, so I'm stuck with it, I'm afraid. To get fits the feed-in tariff, I'm stuck with that for the time being. For another 12 years to be precise. It's been there 12 years, 13 years now. But it's a lot better than having to pay all these huge price increases that are coming along, or at least it'll help. Anyway, who's next on the list? I think it's G4XAT. I'm not sure whether that list is valid now, but that was the one on my list anyway. Whoever it is who'd like to take over, please. This is G0DQH, and we're located halfway between Southampton and Winchester in Chandlersford, in Valley Park to be precise. Okay, hopefully I'll see you all next week. I won't be around the next over because I've got paint I've got to be sorting out downstairs. This is G0DQH, and they're going clear.
Right, evening all. G4XAT. Thanks, James. Evening all. Shut that up. Right, I think I've resolved my audio. I'm not using the headset. I suspect I may have had two concurrent audio sources. Okay, let's have a transition away from my test card. It'd be favourite, wouldn't it? Right, that's the C920 I was using on Tuesday night. I must have something wrong in the stream settings, I think, because from what I'm looking at, that's pretty reasonable. Okay, I've been playing with my bits and pieces for 3.4 gigahertz. So what we have here is my Toshiba 40 or 50 watt amp on 3.4. To say it goes like a rocket is a bit of an understatement. The bits of coax to the left of it there are whoops, bit too far, sorry. They're Times Microwave double braid PTFE things. It's about the size of RG58, but the amp makes those warm. Well, it made one of those warm. I was feeding it into a 40 dB coupler, and then sampling off the coupler through another 23 dB into Sapsagan to look at my waveform, because my power meter and spectrum analyzer doesn't go that far. So that works. 12.6 volts, 15 amps. Yep, Dave, I've got GU6EFB next, no worries there. Right, I'd like the Hive's opinion, please. That is a flat plate antenna, and I very cautiously fed the amp into that, starting at lower power and then wound it up to full beams, expecting something to flash over. which it didn't do actually, but the thin tracks, the feed is in the middle of that little hairpin loop where there's fresh solder. There's an SMA on the back. Those two little tracks where they are thin, they were getting warm, and I suspect what will happen is it will burn the FR4 underneath that eventually. But anyway, I've used those on lesser power. It's a 16 patch thing. I'd love to know what gain it might have, because I can also compare it with, bear with me a second folks, should be a bit quieter tonight as well. I've moved the power supply into the cupboard behind me since it's on remote. Ugh, these polycams all very well, aren't they? Right, there's a double biquad for 3.4, and I'm wondering which of those two will have the most gain. If you hear a fan noise go up, that was my 3-speed fan reaching the second speed, so that tells me it's time to stop waffling and perhaps go back to a test card and let someone else have a go. So round to GU6EFB. Hope it's nice down there in Guernsey from G4X80. Over.
Right, I think you passed it to me, Keith. I hope that's. I hope you have. I'm I'm afraid your signal was just a little bit too low, and I lost out on the audio, so I went on to the streamer, but with the delay. But I hope I've got it right. So good evening, everybody, and thank you, and welcome back, Dave. Hope you're refreshed and renewed. by your well-earned break. Sorry I didn't get on last week, but a couple of weeks ago I did threaten you all with some nostalgia. So you're going to have to put up with that from me tonight. Let's get rid of that. And let's wave something at you here. This is the certificate of joining the RSGB in 1951. So there we are. Been a member, continuous member of RSGB for 71 years, coming up, not quite, another couple of months anyway. And on the back it says, this certificate is the property of the Incorporated Radio Society of Great Britain, must be returned to the Society when the holder resigns or relinquishes his membership. This certificate is not transferable and may be only used by the person named on the front. So there you have it. It was all very legal in those days. But anyway, I haven't relinquished my membership, so I've still got it. Together with, and this is Jim, you posted on the, I think on the Facebook page, the dreaded exam papers. So here's mine. So I can beat you on the date 1952, and there, what joy that was, my pass certificate. And in those days, of course, you had no way of getting trained to get your license. You just had to mug it up from what literature was available, from the RSGB bulletin, talking to other people. I was still at school in those days, of course, and I was a member of the Western-super-Mare Amateur Radio Society, which is a great source of wisdom. And I managed to get hold of an old copy of the ARRL handbook, which I read more or less from cover to cover, and managed to cope with the City and Guilds, a 3-hour written paper. I did just for your amusement. There we are. That's the actual paper itself. You can see there we are. 3 hours from 7 till 10 p.m. All questions should be attempted. Diagrams where applicable. And there's the backside. And there we are. And having done that, and having received my pass certificate, it was then a question of going back and carrying on learning Morse code. And I was very fortunate. One of the members of the Western-super-Mare Amateur Radio Society was a delightful guy called Ted Mulholland, never licensed. He used to come and sit in his corner at the meetings and say very, very little. But in fact, he was the chief operator of the end of the Atlantic cable from America into the UK, that in those days came ashore at Western-super-Mare, and that was the headquarters of the telegraph company. And he was a Morse operator, key operator, and he handled all the traffic between 10 Downing Street and the White House during the war. Anyway, dear Ted, took pity on me in my youth and ignorance, and once a week after school, I went to their house, where his delightful wife laid on a luscious tea with cake, and following that, Ted would sit down with me and his key, beautiful brass band key, and with him I learnt Morse code. Couldn't have wished for a more a more superior teacher as that. And eventually I took my test, of course, in those days with the post office, and obviously Ted's work wasn't completely wasted, and I passed. And joy of joy, on the 23rd of, this is really why I'm whittling on about all this, on the 23rd of January 1953, this arrived through the post. My license well, my license is actually issued because I was still a junior. As you'll see, if I go to the, whoops, if I go to the next slide. Sorry about this, messing about. There we are. In fact, it was issued to my father. And a less technical person is you could not imagine than my father. But there we are. I wasn't old enough to hold an amateur radio license, so I was his agent. And there we are. And the fee was £1 per year. So the reason for all this nonsense and nostalgia is it's 69 years last week since I got my license, and I thought you'd like to see, being that way inclined, this was my station when I was first licensed. AR88 cost £25, all my savings, and my parents very reluctant allowed me to more or less empty my post office account from all the birthdays and Christmases over 15 years, and bought the AR88, and there is my first transmitter. Ignore all this. This was all, apart from that, that's the Class D wave meter, which was you had to have. That was my very first contact, G3IHB, on the 24th of January. That's Larry Claricoats, G5LC, who was chairman of the RSGB at that time. No, sorry, General Secretary of RSGB. And that was a homemade oscilloscope, which rather floored my physics master, because it was a bit beyond him. So I think I rather de-skilled him on that, but never mind. Anyway, if we go to this camera here, lo and behold, here is my original transmitter with its power supply, original power supply. I used that for 2 years, running maximum of 6 or 7 watts, and it just CW only. It's a crystal oscillator PA with using 2 TT11s. Can you see the heaters are glowing? Yes, it still works. There we are. And if you look up there, you can see on my power meter that we are getting some RF just under a watt, because I'm running it with no SWR. Of course, it's on the dummy load. Sorry, I hope you saw that all right. I'm looking at the wrong monitor. Oh dear, that wasn't very good, was it? There we are. Anyway, there we are. So it still works. If I can just show you some other pictures a minute. This is I'm rather taking a lot of your time, aren't I? Let's just go back to sorry, fiddling about here with OBS and all the. I've got too much going on here. If we go on to some other pictures, that was the, I built a little shack after that. There's the Class D wave meter. There's the little radio, first transmitter, replaced when I built the Elizabethan 150 watt AM CW rig. That was 2 years later. So I used that rig, nothing else, one crystal on one frequency, 3532 on the 80 meter band. There's the oscilloscope, there's the AR88. Class D wave meter, and that was yours truly. And this was a talk we gave to our village youth club with a friend of mine, Anthony, now sadly deceased. He got his license after me. And here's the Elizabethan. We lugged all this up to the youth club. I think they were all a bit nonplussed by all this stuff. The 813 sat on top just for the fun of it. So, quick look at the rig close to. It's built into the empty box that I acquired of a BC 357, which was an American Army beacon receiver used in the Air Force for a very early instrument landing system. But it was just a nice box. And you know me, I always try and get too much into too small a space, and I've never changed them, sadly. So here is the construction of a 15-year-old schoolboy, and I'll show you the soldering iron that I built that with. I still got it, and it still works. There's the single crystal reground to 3532. Notice the shunt on the back of the meter there to get the current right. And here's the power supply. 150 volt regulator, and the 5T4 double diode rectifier, all the usual stuff. And I had to reform that. The one thing that I was scared of when firing, because I hadn't fired this up in 67 years since I last ran this. It's been in the back of the cupboard ever since. So I thought the one thing I must do is reform the capacitor, and I use this method with a resistor. I love this formula here that tells you that the process, it requires you to do it for 5 minutes, plus a minute for every month that it's been switched off. So it required 10 hours of reforming. And here's the underside, and notice it's held up by 2 pieces of oak. Those were bricks pinched from my youngest brother's toy box. And they've been there ever since, but I don't think he's noticed they're missing. He's nearly 80 himself. So there we are. That's my first rig. It still works. Isn't that amazing? And I had a contact last night with G4 SFS, who doesn't live very far away, on a piece of random wire, and he gave me a 5 and 9. I shan't try it again, but there we are. So that's more than enough for me. It's to you, Dave. G8 GKQ. G3IUZ.
Sorry, I've just literally got some food and it got sent back to me. So anyway, good evening all. Hopefully it's yeah, it seems to be working. Sorry, I've lost mouthful of bits and pieces. Anyway, right, outside. Good evening all. Only just got in, so apologies, missed most of it. Just watched the interesting stuff there from was it Roger? Just quickly trying to see the name. I'm pretty sure it was Roger anyway. Yeah, that makes my entry to amateur radio somewhat tame, to say the least. Mine was probably the more usual route for my sort of age of people, in via CV in the late 70s, early 80s, I suppose. But yeah, I had a spout at CW. I had a couple of ex-submariners teach me, and yeah, I don't know, just didn't do it with me. They were fantastic, they were great, but yeah, I got up to 12 words a minute, but I bottled it on the day and took to 5 words a minute, and the guy said I should have took to 12, but I didn't, so I ended up with a 20 AZ, I think it was, and then they give us the full license anyway, so I didn't need it. So I was quite chuffed in some sense. Not that I've used HF very much at all, except that I've gone and bought a new toy. It's something that's I've been umming and ahhing about for a little while, because I guess like most people, the noise on HF is just ridiculous, to say the least. So especially with the stuff I do on VLF as well, it's just proving to be almost a dead end, to say the least. But anyway, I bought one of those QRM eliminator things. You know, I don't know if you've seen them, but I'm sure most people have. One of these sorts of, I don't forget, I've got blur on. Bear with me 2 seconds. Come on, it's supposed to be a quick computer. Right, camera, turn all that off. Right, there we go. Right, so one of these jobbies, it's just a phase shift basically, but I'm absolutely amazed how it works most of the time. On some of the noise, it just has no effect at all. But, and I need you to turn your audio down a bit because I don't know how loud this is going to be. So let me just try this video quickly. Come down. Right, you can probably see the noise on the spectrum now. And basically it's listening to Volnet on, I can't remember the frequency now, on HF somewhere over. And that's with the phase shift switched in. It pretty much removed all the noise to the point that you can now hear, probably I'm talking over the top of it now. Let me just listen to that audio. Yeah, so it was. So that's her talking, and then there was some fading on it as well, but anyway, now I'm getting echo on everything. So, but anyway, I'll go back to me. The results are phenomenal. It doesn't work, I say, on everything. Some of the I've got one particular I've not located it yet, but there's one major annoyance on around about 3 megahertz, and it's just horrendous. I'm guessing it might be some sort of broadband extender, one of these ones that goes through the mains. It's just horrible. And the problem is, all my radios, it causes the AGC to pulse. So if you look on a waterfall, you can actually see where the AGC is going high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low, and it's just horrendous. So I've got to try and figure out where that's coming from and do something about it, hopefully. But anyway, that's that. What else have I done? Not a lot. No, nothing. So it's been a quiet time for me. Right, anyway, hopefully that's not bored you too much, and I'm glad I actually made it on. Oh, that was the other thing. Actually, I just remembered. Yeah, I've been looking at the Raspberry Pi 4 as well, but I thought I'd found a problem, but it wasn't. So, yeah. But it seems to produce a very wide band noise. It's almost like a noise generator on it. It's just very, very wide. I was looking at 10 megs wide, and I could see it from sort of 140ish, or 5 megs either side of it, and it was just raising the noise floor by probably was it S3 up to plus 10, I think, at some point. So yeah, pretty awful. So yeah, hopefully we'll find the bottom of that. Right, I believe it goes around to I guess it must be going around to Dave, as I think that's who it was going to next. So G80KQ, G7JTT in the group.
G7JTT and the group. G8GKQ. Okay. Well, good. Very interesting stuff there. Roger, that gear all looks very familiar. I was 20 years behind you, but started with an AR88 and crystal control on 2 meters with my G8 call. And self-study for the RAE as well. But no, that looks lovely. Really good to see. and very interested in all these PAs floating around. At least the source of PAs for QO100 has reopened. I worried about a year ago that things had dried up a bit. But so really good to see some PAs and more work on that. Since I came back, main work has been on the repeater controller. Some of you will have seen it on GB3HV. There's nothing really to show of progress. However, I have now implemented PTT switching so that when it's used with a real repeater, it can turn the transmitter on or off if you want to. All configurable. You can have the transmitter running 24/7 or certain operating hours or only when it's in use, but that's all within the program. The other thing I got working today that I was really pleased with is DTMF control. Just uses a USB sound dongle, the same type as is used on the ports down, and takes in DTMF on the mic socket and does the remote control of the repeater. So that is now working. So a few more bells and whistles to finish on it, and then I'll publish it and start writing it up for CQTV. Did manage to snaffle a Raspberry Pi during the week from the Pi Hut. Also bought one of those heat sinks. Haven't even taken it out of the box yet. A box heatsink. And a couple of little units here, $5 each. They are battery backed or capacitor backed clocks for a Raspberry Pi. So you set the time on a Raspberry Pi, and then if you take the power off it for up to a week, it still retains what the time is. And again, that will get built into the repeater design so that repeaters without internet can retain correct timing. The other thing that arrived today was a whole bunch of pics from DigiKey, so they will be going in the shop soon. At the moment they have been programmed and delivered. So the 8-way switchboard pics will be back in stock. Okay, holiday-wise, I was just going to show you quick. This was the ship. I'll just come back to me for a minute. No, I won't. I will go to another camera. Let's go try that. OBS and me don't get on. That was something we saw on the route. We were due to dock there, but the winds were 40 odd knots and they couldn't tie up alongside safely. So that was the best view we got of Gibraltar. And the last one is a mystery photo for you. I spotted this on the quayside when I got back to Southampton. I wonder if anybody can identify what is in the shrink wrapping. I know what it is, I just don't know where it was bound, but that was on the dockside at Southampton. Kudos to anybody who can actually identify what that is. So, round to Martin for a quick whiz round for the second time. But thanks all for coming on. More really interesting stuff. That's great to see. Let's get rid of that. Fade. Oh no, didn't want a black picture. We wanted that one. There we go. G8 GKQ round to G4 FKK.
Yeah, okay, Dave. G4FKK returning. Well, I think that the shrink wrap thing must be your birthday present, Dave. Someone's got it ready for you when you docked. So no, that's too modern for me to recognise. Anyway, very interesting net and interesting things happening on it today. Oh, Jim, yes, I forgot to mention your negative test, so I'm glad that's all sorted. I had COVID back in October, and my throat's still a bit wobbly, but hopefully you'll be over that by next week. And think about heating the pallets up to 225. I did see a tip by someone recently. They heat the pallet up to somewhat less than the melting point of solder, and then aim some extra heat where they want to shift things, which might make it a bit less perilous as you transfer the pallet to a heat sink to cool it down again. Jim, Brian, nice to see you on. I hope the Ryde build goes well. It's a nice device, the Ryde. I'm actually not using mine today. I'm using the Winter Hill receiver, which is another nice device. And Russ, very interested in your trial of Windows 11. When I say trial, I'm leaving it to other people before I attempt that. So interesting, you've managed to get everything going. So that's very good. And I'm sure you'll sort out the audio sync problem in due course. Sorry to hear about your trip for the funeral today, and I hope that went as well as these things can do. James, well done on the new Fire and the old PV system. I was talking to Glenn, G4FVL, the other day, who's got a new... He had PV put in probably about the same time as you, 12, 13 years ago. But he's got another one on a different part of his roof, which evidently is very much more efficient. But there's some power factor problem with the metering of his smart meter, which shows it's generating power. Luckily, it's generating power and shoving it back up the mains according to the meter, even when it's pitch dark. So apparently that's a power factor issue, which makes sense. And excellent on the Hacker as well. Gareth, that 3.4 gig amp looks very neat and obviously working quite well. Your audio is still a bit warbly, I'd say, and the sound of it seems to change when you changed between the test card and the camera. So I can't think what that might be offhand. And sorry to hear it's raining in Guernsey, Keith. I didn't think it ever rained in Guernsey. It's always been beautiful every time I've been there. And the CNC router looks, that's going to be fun, I should think. Roger, yeah, fascinating your story of 71 years in the RSGB. A couple of people put their associate numbers up while you were talking, Roger. So I was A9045. I think that was 1975. I don't know. So I'll be coming up for 50 years, although they haven't. I don't know how they know. Presumably their records are better than mine. I can't find my RAE certificate. I have got my original license, and you probably remember it, Roger. I remember so distinctly as that dropped through the letterbox, and I opened it up. It was a Saturday, and I had to go to my Saturday job because I was still at school as well. And the morning at the hardware shop at which I worked seemed to drag on forever, and I ran back at lunchtime, had my first QSO with G4 CCX, much to the annoyance of G2 ANT, who had been my mentor. He was my second contact on my homemade top band transmitter, which I'm ashamed to admit, although I'm brave enough to admit it now. My top band AM transmitter, with its 5763 in the PA and a 6BW6 modulator, used to work on a slightly lower frequencies than top band when I first built it. And you had to have some sort of wave meter. I had a Class D wave meter. But my first receiver was an old valve medium wave radio that I bought for a 5p, I think, from a jumble sale. And I tweaked its oscillator so it would cover top band. And I had a transistorized medium wave radio which I could use as a beat frequency oscillator for CW. So good times. And I didn't get an AR-88 until years later. My parents definitely wouldn't allow me to raid my post office savings account. That was for when I was 21, and not a minute before. My original top band transmitter is still in the loft, and you've inspired me. I'm going to dig it out during the week, Roger, and fire it up again. But, I worked America on the transatlantic tests on my homemade top band transmitter. And I remember the Elizabethan, that was in one of the RSGB books, I seem to remember. That was and you did a good job on that. Your new toy, John, very, very good. What I would say is that noise source you showed, which is deafening, that must be a point source if you can null it out that far. I use a similar system here with a noise aerial, and I can phase the noise aerial against the long wire or whatever other aerial I'm running. And they're very good for sources that are coming from one place. I've got a very strong local medium wave transmitter here, and I can null that out. When I say strong, it's sort of full-scale deflection, and it's only a few miles from here. And I can null that out and hear a station up in the north of England underneath it. But the noises you're having less success with are probably more than one source, I suspect. So the horrible VDSL annoyance I get on 80 meters is very difficult. I can notch the worst of it out, but because it's coming from all over. And I was thinking the other day, all these little noise sources are all locked to the mains, and of course, so they're all in phase with each other. So that noise you get on HF these days is just lots of tiny transmitters, but there's a lot of power, when you add them all up in phase with each other. But anyway, it's got rid of that horrid noise, but I think that might be something very local to you, John. So I'd track that down and tread on it if you can find it. Okay, Dave, well, you've obviously been busy. I don't know how long you've been back, but it sounds like you've done a lot of work with the PTT and the DTMF. And your early AR-88 as well. I'd have been very jealous. I had my jumble sale receiver for at least 18 months before I could have. I then had a B40C, which apparently is an old Admiralty radio. My theory was that they used to use them on submarines, and then when they wanted to come up, they'd throw a few of these B40Cs out of it through the torpedo tubes, and then it would come up again, the undersea boat. I've got a note here which I can't read. So, 40 knot winds. Presumably you got good sea legs, but by the time you got to Gibraltar, or didn't get to Gibraltar, Dave. Well, I think that's it for me. I think it must be... Oh, it is. It's Russ next. Thanks for putting the list up again, Dave, because I was losing track of who was in and who was out. But thank you all very much for coming up, and I shall put it round to you, Russ. G4SAQ. I suppose I better put a test card up. Hang on. G4SAQ, G4FKK is standing by.
Okay, G4FKK in the group, G4SAQ. Right, just bear with me a moment. Let me get my... That's better. Okay, I lost some windows on the screen, but I've got them back again now. Yeah. Well, first of all, Roger, congratulations on your near 71 years with the RSGB. That's pretty fantastic. I looked at the date of your exam, and that's the year I was born, so that's quite something. Puts it all in perspective, I think. Yeah, John, your phaser. I got one here. I think if I take my camera down, it's going to cause chaos, I think, but I'll try it anyway. See what I can do. There we are. That is one I built from a kit on eBay, and I think the kit was about 15 quid or something like that. It was ridiculously cheap, and it cost me a lot more to buy the box and the connectors to go on the back of it than the actual device itself. Martin and I have spoken about this in the past, a couple of months ago, I think, on the net, and we're both using a loop antenna as the noise source, as the noise sense antenna, and yeah, I concur that it's an extremely useful thing to have. Dave, that repeater controller is very interesting, and some friends of mine from the Horndean and District Club have just got an NOV for GB3FW, which I'm sure you're aware of, which is going to be on the top of Portsdown Hill, and I know they're starting to build the equipment, so you're right up in the magazine will be most welcome, I'm sure. You're docking in Gibraltar. I've got some. I've got a horrendous memory of sailing into Gibraltar. I was fortunate enough to be invited to take part in a sailing regatta in Mallorca a few years back with my wife Helen, and the guy was the owner of a 55-foot Oyster sailing yacht, lovely yacht. And after the regatta in Mallorca, we sailed down to Gibraltar, where Helen and I were going to get off the boat and go home. Anyway, we arrived at night, and the Levanta was blowing, which is an easterly wind that blows across that part of the Med. And the Levanta was howling so much that we couldn't get into the marina. It would have been very dangerous to have tried. So we went up north of the runway and anchored up there in the anchorage and put out just about every bit of chain that we'd got, and we were safe there. And I think after about 3 hours it reduced, and in the morning everything was nice and quiet and we were able to get into the marina. But yeah, it certainly does blow there when it blows. Right. I really can't think that I've got anything else to add, so I'm going to thank you, Dave, very much for running the net, and I'm going to wish everybody a very good night. And I need to look at the list to see who I've got to pass it to. Right. It appears that it's James, G0DQH, or if he's not there, it's Gareth to pick it up, G4XAT. So this is G4SAQ. I'm going to put it over, I'm going to put up a test card when I can get my mouse to work. I'm losing all my windows here on the screen. Very annoying. Right.
Come on, lock. That's better. Right, I'm sure James said he wasn't coming up for a second over. He had to go and do something. Apologies if I'm flattening him from G4XAT. Right, yeah, I mean the Toshiba amp, which is now showing, very easy to convert. It's got a lead which you ground to send it into PTT. So I put a toggle switch on that, which you can see in the picture just about. It's on a little panel underneath. And there's also a phono which is in parallel with that. So that'll interface nicely with my port stand, which has got a closing relay contact available on the phono for enabling amplifiers and external paraphernalia. If you look at the top bit there, at the top, whoops, no, wrong one, that's the zoom. That little green board there, that is a fan speed controller. I think John showed one of those a while back, and I chased some up and found them on AliExpress. So I bought 10 of them for like £2 a pop. It took a long time to get here, like 2 months, but they did get here in the end. There we are. Okay, that put audio back on the camera. I think that's where the audio wraparound was coming from, Martin. I turned one down. I think I've got too many audio sources and they were obviously crashing around with each other. Yeah. Okay, good. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the amp. Yeah, I mean the amp warms up. It uses 15 amps at 12.6 volts, so not all of that is RF. It's about 25% efficient, I reckon. And the heatsink does warm up, but the fans speed up beautifully. And I'd say the heatsink doesn't get over about 30 degrees C. It's another one of my ducted fan ideas. The underside of the cover is about 3mm off the top of the fan, off the top of the fin blades. So there isn't nasty resonances and that sort of thing going on. That's the theory anyway. There's a little voltmeter underneath so you can check that you're not underrunning it because it does funny things. And the little curved FMA, I bet you've got double audio again now. The little curved FMA, I turned that round so it's pointing the other way. Okay, early spring, yeah, I'd agree with that. I was looking at my parsnips today, which we usually eat until well into March, and the damn things have started growing. I'm sure that's premature, and the garden's very dry as well. So there is that. Solar power, yeah, we had a system put in about 9 years ago now. 1.5 kilowatt peak is the best it's done, and it powers the heat pump behind me on a sunny day. Keeps me cool in the summer and warm in the winter. It's not too bad on that. Okay, and all the old gear coming out. Yes, it's very nice to see. I find it very hard to part with stuff, but you've got to choose some point, I suppose. Like I've got a very nice 2018 Portsdown that does everything, and because I've now got a Portsdown 4-stroke Langstone, it's just not getting used. But I don't know, it's tricky. Anyway, that's enough from me. Glad everyone, Jimmy got over the COVID and stuff, and so on and so forth. I've still managed to avoid it, and so is the wife, even though she gets out a bit more than I do. There we are. Right, okay. Round to you, Russ. Sorry, Keith. GU6EFB, I take it. Transition from double audio G4X AT.
I've been around radio
Right, okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for the kind remarks and so on. Yes, Jim, it is Bellingly, as I can show you. There we are. Yeah, it is the Bellingly. And the plug for the power supply, because we didn't have any 3-pin sockets in our house. We lived down in deepest Somerset. This was the power supply connection for everything. 2 pins, 5 amps. That was all we had. I think my mother at some point in my youth had a 3-pin socket fitted so she could use an electric iron. But all the rest of the house, 2-pin sockets. The other thing I was going to show you, the soldering iron. Forgot to show you that. There we are, the soldering iron that was used to actually build this. You can see my problem. If we, there's not a lot of room. Gosh, how do we get it there? There we are. So life had its hazards in those days. So there it is. I got it from our local ironmonger, and I guess I bought that in the late 1940s or early 1950s, probably 1948, 49, I guess. And it still works beautifully. That's the original bit. It still hasn't worn away. There's a lot of it. And that was the aerial tuning. That's what I use for aerial tuning. Silver plated. Isn't that beautiful? I don't think you can get things like that these days, but it fed an end-fed ZEP for 80 meters. To tune it, you use a little neon like that and held it nearby and tuned for maximum light. So there we are. You see, that's what happens when you've been licensed this long. Your memory, you can bore the pants off everybody else. Good night to you all. Thank you very much. I hope I've answered the question. Oh, and by the way, Keith, looking forward to seeing, and Dave, Mike, who I think showed his last week. I'm looking forward to seeing how these little CNC machines work, because you've seen my rather bigger one in days gone by, but looking forward to seeing what can be accomplished with the little ones. So look forward to that, Keith and Mike. So now it goes to G7JTT, I think. Yeah. So good night to you all, and thank you very much for a most enjoyable evening. At least I've enjoyed my nostalgia. I hope you have.
Is that working? 1, 2, 1, 2. I just heard mention, I forget who mentioned it now. I was too busy trying to finish off my dinner and stuff. But anyway, someone mentioned a B40. My friend and I, Paul, who's G7EWS, between us, do you know what? I really can't remember how we got hold of it, but we both had CBs when we were young kids, whatever, teenage kids, and we got hold of a B40, and that's what got us into amateur radio, because you could hear all this stuff on it, and of course ordinary radios didn't decode it, whatever you want to call it. You know, in them days is what we used to say, but with the sideband and stuff, we just couldn't. All we heard was this sort of gobbledygooky type noise, and we used to basically share this between us. We lived about, I don't know, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile apart, whatever, and there was no way we could carry this, so we used to transport it between each other's house. He'd have it for a week, and then I'd have it for a week, or a couple of days, whatever we'd agreed at the time. We used to transport it on a skateboard, so we used to walk down Penn High Street where we lived, and pushing this damn great big heavy thing on a skateboard, praying that we didn't hit a bump and end up falling over and breaking everything inside it. So yeah, we had the B40s for quite a while. And then we managed to get hold of a B41, which is the VLF version of it. And back in them days, a lot of the stuff was still CW. So although it was encoded most of the time, occasionally when they were on exercise and things, you could hear the subs, and the subs would be completely unencrypted. Obviously, no secrets being passed between, but yeah, that was quite interesting. What was the other thing I was going to do? Oh yeah. I'm all prepared to try and find where all this noise is coming from, because that's the little loop that I've got, and that will hopefully find it roughly where we're going to go. And then when I get to it, I'm going to use that little device to see if I can actually locate it. So whether it's a particular power supply or whatever. I've managed to find quite a lot within the shack actually. My Android TV box is going to be no more. That was causing an untold amount of interference. But the biggest problem I seem to be getting is HDMI. HDMI is everywhere, and there, which is produces stuff. So when I'm on VLF, I have to turn off the second monitor, so I can't. It just creates too much noise. The headset I'm using, that causes two spikes on 136 kilohertz. Various different little power supplies that I've got make all sorts of noise. And in fact, let me just show something if I can find it. Where is it? Which one is it on now? So the other night, I was on 136 kilohertz, and I actually managed to receive VO1NA on Oprah 32, which is some odd mode or other. But anyway, I was dead chuffed for that, and that was on a home-built loop, so that was quite nice. But in fact, what I've put that up for is to show the two spikes. That one there. Sorry, I'm pointing. I can't do it, can I? Because it's on the screen. But anyway, the central one and the one on the right-hand side, they're both spikes from my from these. So I only discovered it because I wanted to try and listen to it whilst doing something else on the actual main speakers of the laptop, and the spikes disappeared as soon as I turned the headphones off. So anyway, that was that. And then if I go to this one and bring that up, right, this is the noise that is causing me absolute grief on almost the entire HF band. I'm assuming it's some sort of, let's say, ancient thing or something, because my neighbours, they've all worked from home, and it's only sort of since all lockdown started that all this noise started to create all the interference that I'm getting. Before that, I lived semi-rural, and it was relatively quiet, but just of late, it's just awful, absolutely awful. But that's the biggest pain, which pretty much knocks out the whole of the 80 meter band, medium wave, long wave, all the NDB beacons and everything else below, because it's so strong wherever it is. And it's not in my house because I've turned my mains off. I think I know it's my neighbour behind me, because they're one of the ones that work from home. And I think if you look on a Wi-Fi scanner, you can see they've got at least, I don't know, 4 or 5 different hubs with different names and everything. So I'm assuming they're all linking up via the mains or something like that. But anyway, hopefully if they go back to work, all that noise will disappear during the day. So fingers crossed for that. And yes, so Guernsey, going over to Copper. Where I live, it's a brand new estate. We're semi-rural. Everybody else in the village as fibre optic. When they built this estate, the law hadn't passed that said you have to install fibre. So when they built it with copper. And now we're stuffed because it's a private estate. If we want fibre bringing in, we've all got to pay for it. And yeah, people aren't going to pay for it. You've got 2 or 3 businesses to run from the estate. They are screaming at the levels of broadband that we get. If we're lucky, we'll get between, on a good day, you'll get about 18, 19, maybe as high as 20 megabits. On a bad day, you might only get 2, 3 megabits. And then when the kids come home and start streaming and playing all the games, it's just a waste of time. It really is. So, yeah, the joys of living out in the countryside, I guess. And my friend Paul, he's WS, where he is, he's on, I forget what it is now, something stupid, 100, 200 megabit, whatever it is, I don't know, gigabits. He's on ridiculously high speeds and pays a fraction of what I pay. We pay 50 quid for the privilege down here to just about get a dial-up speed mostly. So that's that. Anyway, stop grumbling. What else? I don't think there's anything else. So with that, I'll pass it back around to Dave for G8GKQ. G7. Oh, sorry. To answer Martin's in there. Yeah, sledgehammer. I did consider a sledgehammer, but I'd probably do something slightly more subtle. I have some ideas that probably aren't worth talking about on here. But anyway, round today for G8GKQ, G7J to D.
G7JTT, G8GKQ. Got the mute on, good. Let's check I do have audio. Yes, I do. Those noise spikes are interesting, John. Thank you for your work looking at the HDMI on the Raspberry Pi for noise spikes. Interesting that it doesn't disappear, it doesn't change very much when you turn it off. But I think those ribbon cables radiate pretty well. But thanks for all your work on that. For the cruise ships, yes, coming to port does tend to take over some of the ports. We went mainly into the bigger places. I think the problem with the cruise ship and the SpaceX launch was it was a northerly trajectory for the launch. It was an orbital launch, a northerly orbit, and so it was a different danger area. I wonder if that's what caught them out, but they seem to be doing day trips to view the launches. Okay, without further ado, I'll put it round next to Mike and Noel. Mike to go first and then Noel to close the net. So thanks all for coming on tonight. Good to see all the PAs under construction. Not sure where you're going to get the power supply for portable operation, but really good. And look forward to seeing you all next week. So round to G0MJW, then G8GTZ. 73 all.
Okay, hi everyone. Sorry to be a bit late. We were doing the Harwell Club construction contest. I wasn't entering, but it went really well, and Noel very kindly decided to be the adjudicator and give the awards to the successful winners of the Harwell Club contest. Everyone's recommended to join Harwell Club, by the way. It's as good as BATC in terms of a friendly club, but perhaps I shouldn't be advertising that here. Have I got sound? Yes, I've got sound. That's good. Just one or two very, very quick things to show. I've got a lot of other things, but I think we need to be quick since it's the end of the net. And I was watching on the sidelines there and know all about the Virgin Orbit thing, so that was interesting, and looking forward to a UK version of that coming forwards. Let me just switch to Polycam to show Roger what I acquired on his advice. It was ridiculously cheap. They are 120 something pounds delivered if you don't want a laser. It's what it is a CNC machine for hopefully cutting through aluminium, maybe, we'll see. But I've upgraded it slightly. I've put some limit switches on it because it didn't come with limit switches, so I added those for in the case of accidents. Don't want to run off the end of things and burn out motors and things, so that was that. Otherwise, in terms of what's on the bench, there's the usual stuff on the bench. You can see a couple of examples of some quick etchings. Come and see my etchings, so to speak. And the other thing there is the completed power supply, control board for the amplifier, and a whole load more GPIO boards which arrived from from JLC PCB. So I've got some of those now. In fact, I've got 10. So that's good. Right. Yeah. So you ordered one, did you, Keith? Yeah. It was very cheap. You probably didn't have to pay the VAT even, so yours will be even cheaper. Anyway, so I've got some of those boards, and the only other thing I was going to show, if I go back to my normal camera, is this thing, which I didn't show last week. Is the completed amplifier control board. So it now does things. So I can, if I can press buttons, if I can work backwards, I can turn things on. Oops. Turn that one on, turn it off. Turn on the preamp. Ooh, not very good at doing things backwards. And there's just a test frequency at the moment to show all the LEDs work, and the menus and various other things. So next task is the software for that, to go with that control board and control amplifiers. Okay, without further ado, because we're running late, passing over to Noel. So G8 GTZ G0NJW.
Okay, evening all. As Mike said, apologies for I'm a bit late on parade, but I was asked to judge the competition, so that's something I was pleased to do. And as Mike said, some very good entries, including a French guy who'd done a portable 3-meter dish, which was very impressive. A petal dish that he assembles on site. So that was very good. And talking of construction competitions, don't forget it's the RSGB construction competition. It'd be great to see some of these fantastic exhibits that we see on a Thursday night appearing in that. So what's been happening here? Not a lot. Thanks, Dave. I also invested in some more bits for GB3HV, because that's one of the only projects I've been working on, which is the GB3HV logic, coming together pretty well. Seems to have got around most of the HDMI glitches by putting in a second switcher. Seems to have done that. And the other thing, I guess, is 122 gigs. Been playing around, and Gareth, my other 3D printing shop, turned up with this today, and for those of you, that's a sub-reflector for use on a 122 gigahertz dish. And I do agree, Gareth, if you're still watching, that that is significantly different shape to the ones we've tried up until now. Okay, there we go then. Nothing else from this end. It's getting late. Thank you very much, and see you all next week. So 73 from me, and we'll catch you later. Cheerio.